native, and I have worked in Jacksonville all of my life. I am coming to you from also a position at Florida Blue, formerly known as Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Florida, in which I serve as the chair of an employee resource group called Respect, which is for our LGBT employees base and also our allies. At our company in 2007, we started this group, and ever since this group has begun, we have seen increasingly how employees are feeling more comfortable at work, they're feeling more productive, and I myself can only speak from my own experiences in the sense that I have increased several levels in the company since this group began, and I quit living in any kind of fear or retribution that I would be accepted completely in my employment. I do, however, though, constantly hear from our employees that once they leave the walls of our company, that they are having problems with things like housing, public accommodations. You'll hear here today, and we've already heard a few cases where their partners or people that they are with are also being discriminated against in other parts of the city. So I know that most of our offices for Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Florida, Florida Blue, actually already have these protections that's been named out before. Tampa, Sarasota, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, all of those areas are already protected. And we are definitely looking to see that our corporate headquarters also would be able to have these same protections. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Over 15 and a half years ago, I came to Jacksonville on a job interview. And as I sat at lunch with the CEO, we talked about my possibly moving here. One of the questions he asked me was, so, Drew, you're going to move your family here, move your wife? And I went, well, here's the deal. I have a partner of almost 20 years at that time. Well, he took a bite of his salad, said, okay, all right, well, that's good. I said, I also have a cat and another friend living with us. He went, okay. Now, the point of me telling you this is that I was hired for my ability and for my talent and for my professionalism. I was not hired because I was straight or gay or anything else. It had nothing to do with it. I was lucky. I was fortunate. Some people have not been that fortunate. I am now very proud to call Jacksonville my home. I'm very proud to be the Vice President of Creative Design at Sally Corporation, right down the street, in the most colorful business in town and the most colorful building in town. So, for all the people who did not have the kind of experience I had, for all the people who are afraid to speak up and to speak out, I ask you to please consider passing this bill. Vote yes. It's the right thing to do. Thank you very much. Thanks.
And I am who I am since I couldn't walk. Anyway, I did what they called was the norm. Got married, had 2 children. I wasn't happy. I knew there was something wrong. Okay? I raised my children, my husband and I separated, and I went on my way. I wasn't just, this is who I was. I wasn't just trying it out. I wasn't thinking about a job, oh, I'm going to be this or that. I was who I was. Though, because of the way things are in today's society, in certain climates, I did not come out, and rightfully so. But my children have always made it a point, and I made it a point with them, to not discriminate. My children were very good. When they were dating, if they had a young man that they were serious about, most of my daughters told them that I was gay, a lesbian, okay? And if there was a problem, oh well, you know, my children do not discriminate. And my son-in-laws are beautiful. I have 7 grandchildren who I love dearly, wouldn't give them back for anything in the world. And I believe that you should support 2012-396 for the good of all. This is the largest city in the nation. Let's make it the most progressive city in the nation. Please vote in favor of this. Thank you.
And I'm a college professor. 51 years ago, Jacksonville was one of the most racially segregated cities in America. In 1961, a handful of African-American youth from the NAACP had the courage to take the power structure in this city, just across the street here, on. They faced an attack by members of the Ku Klux Klan, supported by the Jacksonville Police Department, in an event we now remember as Axe Handle Saturday. The city council at that time did not act nobly. The Duval County School Board also supported the system of segregation and inequality in our community by ignoring the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court case, ending separate but equal until 1970, 16 years. The history of inequality, intolerance, and hatred runs deep in our city, and these qualities are not those to be proud of. These attitudes today support the new intolerance, the new inequality, and the new hatred against gay, lesbian, and transgendered Americans. Just as in the Jacksonville of old, the Bible is used to justify the intolerance, hatred, and inequality as it was used to support slavery, segregation, and the mistreatment of women. I teach students at 2 local colleges. My students, who are in this unprotected minority, some of whom are brilliant, have no interest in remaining in this community, which treats them as damaged or cursed. They will take their talents earned here, taught by Jacksonville citizens, and with Jacksonville taxpayer money, to cities that will accept, welcome, and protect them. HRO 2012-296 is simply providing the same protections to gay, lesbian, and transgender citizens as to all other citizens of this community. This is the civil rights issue of our time. You can behave as your predecessors did and not act nobly, or you can do the right thing at the right time and vote in favor of equality for all Jacksonville citizens. Thank you.
I've been to 11 Jimmy Buffett concerts in county. I'm the biggest Florida Gator and Jaguar football fan you'll ever meet. I'm a voting conservative. I'm a proud Southerner. I sleep through most Broadway shows. And I'm a gay Jacksonville resident. I tell you the last part because it's a part of me, not a sum of the whole. The ordinance before you tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is of paramount importance to myself and many in our great city. According to Forbes magazine, 89% of Fortune 500 companies prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. These companies include JP Chase, CSX, Wells Fargo, and Everbank. All companies with either headquarters in Jacksonville or a large number of Jacksonville residents. UNF, FSCJ, and JU all have written policies and procedures similar to this ordinance before you this evening for their respective institutions. You have an opportunity before you not just to make Jacksonville a better place, but to drastically improve our economy and business culture and help Jacksonville attract new businesses and residents to our city. Not passing this ordinance would be detrimental in transforming and rebuilding our local economy into an unstoppable engine of progress. I firmly believe that this is not and should not be an argument involving and invoking or about religion. As a Southern-raised man, like myself had to do, I dutifully went and prayed at Sunday school every week. Religious arguments, as they rightly should, change, evolve, and are interpreted in and by society in different ways over time. For example, Ezekiel 23:47 states that adulterers should be stoned to death by a mob that includes their family. That makes what John Edwards did in 2020 look just a little easier. And in my prior mentioning of my love of football, Leviticus 11:7 says touching the skin of a dead pig makes one unclean. I, for one, don't plan to be anywhere else but at Florida Field when they kick off for the Gators this fall. We must always remember that Jesus called for us to love one another as He loved us in John 13:34. And that is an idea I think that becomes lost in sensitive discussions like this. In different ways, both the Bible and the Constitution call for us as children of God and students of democracy to treat others the way we deserve and want to be treated, with dignity and respect. The bottom line is, ladies and gentlemen, people should be judged at work by their performance and nothing else. People should be who they are in their own home and not judged based off their sexual orientation or gender identity. I moved back to Jacksonville after living in New Orleans for 2 years after my brother tragically took his own life in May of 2011. I moved here, and I moved back here because Jacksonville made me a better man by living here, and by the friends and the extended family that I've met by living here. Let's afford all the young men and women in the city the opportunity to grow up to be good, functioning, and contributing members of society, and not be fearing of who they are or who they were born as and who God made us to be. Thank you.
Cities that retain and attract the most talented and educated workforces, whether they're straight or gay, have the strongest local economies. Cities that protect gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender individuals also have the opportunity to attract high-tech and knowledge-based industries to locate their headquarters to. It's kind of like the "if you build it, they will come" saying. While corny, in this case, it's a proven fact. I have some handouts for each of you that explain those points well, as answers any other questions that you may have. Council, no matter what anyone here says or believes, this does not add any laws. This does not say that gay is okay. This does not impose on the churches. This does not agree with same-sex marriage. This does not have anything to do with procreation. This does not involve the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts. This does not have to do with public opinion on morality. This does not make Jacksonville a gay mecca. This does not create more lawsuits. And this does not mean the end of civilization here. This change to our current ordinance has everything to do with treating people fair and equitable when it comes to employment, public accommodations, and housing. And as we have heard the mayor say, let's make Jacksonville a destination and not a pass-through. I respectfully ask that you pass it and move our city to the next level. Thank you.
I moved here 6 years ago because I thought that I had discovered the most fabulous land in all the United States. Jacksonville, by all accounts, has the most potential of any place I've ever lived in this country. But within a few years, it becomes pretty obvious the real climate, besides the weather, is a lack of pro-attitudes that are for equality. And it's disturbing. It makes someone who comes here with a lot of hope not want to stay here, and certainly not want to open a business here. And that was me. I haven't ever opened my business here, and that was always my hope. So they also want to talk about religious bigotry, because I think that plays an important role in this decision. We can look back at history and learn a lot of lessons. We can learn a lot of lessons from the 1800s, the mid-1800s, where people were discriminated against for their color, and the Bible was used for that. In 1915, when women were looking for the right to vote, the same thing, the Bible and religious people were preaching to their congregations against it. And the same in the 50s, mid-century. Sorry. I'm a little emotional about this, because this is so important to me. The civil rights of the 50s, when people were looking for their rights, the same thing happened with people in churches on Sundays, where people were going out and preaching against the very people that were looking for rights, African Americans. And the same with interracial marriage in the 60s. And I think you can see where that stands on the side of history. I ask you tonight to pass 296 for all people, not for just me, but for everybody, because we can't really truly live in a peaceful society without true equality for everyone. Thank you.
I moved here in 2004. I love this city. Now, I've written this from my heart, so please forgive me if I keep looking down. As a lesbian, a philanthropist, a human rights activist, a Jew from European origin, a current U.S. citizen today, a past South African Dutch person whose family on my mother's side stood up against the apartheid, fought against discrimination, and a great-grandfather who was literally kicked out of South Africa for activism. I stand up for human rights. I serve on the Student Affairs Council at UNF because I care about the youth. I have served as a board member at WJCT because I care about public policy and matters. I am someone who has a keen interest in improving the lives of human beings. I have, along with my late husband, an extremely dear human being who taught me so much about life. An activist himself, a Methodist minister, Reverend Andrew Parker, and I contributed to organizations and businesses in Jacksonville, and I have maintained that practice. I support this Bill 296 in the name of human rights, and I urge you to do the same. Thank you.
I am a lifelong resident of Jacksonville, and not to get corny, but I love this city and have always loved it, and returned on several occasions because I appreciate Jacksonville and all that it has to offer. Currently, I am Vice President of Operations and Account Management with a company called New Directions Behavioral Health, and our business is to manage behavioral health benefits for insurance plans. We are a wholly owned company by Blue Cross plans across the nation. It is important for us to be able to recruit talent from a national talent base, and our own internal policies, of course, support non-discrimination based on sexual identity or sexual preference. It is important that the city of Jacksonville also support that, in that these folks are going to be moving to the area and should not be discriminated in their housing choices. Likewise, they bring along with them partners and significant others, and we want to assure that they are not discriminated in the job market or likewise in their pursuit of housing. So I encourage you, as a medium-sized business, to be sure to take a serious consideration in the impact on our business here in Jacksonville in support of the 2012-296 bill. Thank you.
Dr. Gaffney's district, and I thank you, Mr. Jones, for putting this on the floor. Personally, myself, I am for this bill, but do I believe it should be here? No, I do not. It should be at the federal level, and that's in the 1964 Civil Rights Bill, and including on that. One thing that has been brought up is special rights or extra rights by Ms. Daniels. Rights is everybody's rights. And does it make it special? We don't want it to be special. We want everybody to have a level playing field, and there's going to be discrimination across the board, no matter who you are, what you are. But the LGBT community needs some protection because we are discriminated against. I want to tell you a story about a very important person, that's Richard Noble, that's walking across the United States right now as we speak. On June 9th, he's going to stop here as his last finale, crossing the United States. And he chose to do this, leaving from San Francisco, and has crisscrossed 10 states to come to Jacksonville. He chose to do that because there is discrimination. And he sees it every day just like all of us. And I hope you, as the council, and our representatives in the city, choose. That's one word we always say, we choose it. But you guys get to choose and to vote to give rights, not special rights, just rights to citizens of your city, and to make Jacksonville put it on the map. Thank you.
I have lived in Jacksonville for 12 years. I reside in Councilman Warren Jones' district. Councilman. Thank you for sponsoring and wanting to end discrimination with this bill. I also want to acknowledge that this year is the 100th birthday of Byron Rustin, who was Dr. King's lead advisor and did over 50 years worth of civil rights. He kind of got brushed under history, and so I want to honor him. He was one of the fourth greatest minds on the planet at the time. He organized the whole march on Washington for Dr. King. So with that, the journey of human rights for all people has been a long stride, and now it's our time to make protections along in this journey. At my workplace, the Children's Hospital, there is no separation of lives and the hearts of those children. We are all one heart there. Each day I take care of those hearts. I make sure that each gets my very best care that they need to live another day. These hearts come in an array of all sorts of lives, and we take care of them every day. So I'm asking you to do the same thing. Take care of all the hearts within this community. Let us be able to tell others that Jacksonville is a city with open hearts. End discrimination by supporting this bill 2012-296. I thank you for your time and consideration.
I accepted Jesus as my Savior when I was 8 years old at my local Baptist church. It was Arnold Baptist Church in Lexington, Kentucky. I've been a lifelong Christian. I joined the military on my 17th birthday. I was stationed in Jacksonville in the 1980s. I retired here. After retiring, I taught at Rains High School for a couple of years. Today, I'm the chair of the NAMES Project, which is the age memorial quilt. I love Jacksonville. I love this city, and I encourage you to pass this ordinance for all of us. Thank you.
I'm a native of Jacksonville. I was born here a little over 73 years ago, just down the street at what was then St. Luke's Hospital at 8th Street Boulevard. I'm here tonight to express my support for the legislation that will preclude further discrimination in Jacksonville. 19 council people have been elected to represent almost 1 million people in this area. You have an awesome responsibility. After your election, you each took a vow to represent your constituents, all of your constituents. Many of your constituents are members of the gay community, and they expect to be represented. Looking around the council, I'll see several of you that would not be qualified to serve. You're women. Women were discriminated against. It wasn't until 90 years ago that you could even vote. As I continue to look around, I see others of you that 50 years ago could not serve in Jacksonville because you're black. Blacks were discriminated against nationally and particularly in the Jacksonville of the 50s and 60s. The same groups that are now making sayings or teachings to deny equal rights or equal opportunities to the gay community are many of the same voices and teachings that wanted to prevent civil rights to the black community. The same time, right now is the time for you to stand up, for you to be heard. It's time for you to let everyone know that Jacksonville is a place that respects human dignity, where you're allowed to prosper, where you're allowed to avoid discrimination of all kinds, where there's a respect for human dignity. You can send the voice out to this community, to this country, even to the world, that no longer will we tolerate discrimination in this community. please pass 296.
Thanks, sir.
And I am in support of the bill, 296. I moved to Jacksonville in 2002, and I started a cleaning service here in Jacksonville, and I've successfully maintained this residential cleaning business all over the city. I've gotten very close to all of these families. Most of these families, are just, heterosexual families, married with children and of the like. I'm involved with some really high-end families in this community. Something happened to me, when I found out about this bill. I started sharing with my clients. I started talking about this with them. I've gotten so close to them that I'm able to discuss comfortably with them about this, what's going on. They don't even know that this is happening. I'm talking about financial industry, bankers, golfers, educators. There's so many people that don't even realize this is happening. And it struck a chord with me. It really did strike a chord with me. And I was thinking, when the Super Bowl was here, we had something that Jacksonville was called the bold new city of the South. The bold new city of the South. Even the police officers had it on their badges. I thought to myself, why does Jacksonville still have the power to discriminate against the LGBT community? Why do they? When all these citizens that I know pay taxes, have jobs, contribute in many areas, especially in the youth and in recovery areas in the city. This is very important to me, so I'm trying to get through it here. So, as I stand here today, I don't just represent myself. I represent these families that discuss this with me, that are shocked that this is going on, and that will stand and be watching what's happening on June 12th, and will have a say. Like I said, educators, realtors, these are my clients, doctors. I have presidents of financial industry, senior vice presidents. We all support Jones Bill 296 because I've informed them of it. I've shared this with them. So they're all going to be watching. So the city of Jacksonville can indeed be that bold new city, in my opinion. I started a business, I've maintained it, it's embraced me, the community embraced me. It saddens me to think that so many people are experiencing this discrimination. Housing, public accommodations.
Ms. Burnett, your time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here to speak in favor of Bill 2012-296. I did have some prepared remarks, but the comments that I've heard here tonight has really opened my mind and opened my heart and kind of got some more thoughts flowing. But one issue that's come up quite a bit is the issue of discrimination against women and how discrimination against anyone is not okay. There's a time not that long ago when it would have been okay for my husband to beat me with a stick so long as it wasn't wider than his thumb. Right? But some forward-thinking legislators took the initiative, took action to put down laws like that. Laws that said, black people have to ride in the back of the bus, or certain people can only go to certain schools, right? We've got a lot of laws in our history, especially here in Jacksonville, that have been unjust. And I've also heard people make a lot of comments about young people leaving Jacksonville. When I graduated from high school, I left Jacksonville and I had absolutely no intention of coming back. And a big part of why I didn't want to come back was perceived racism, intolerance of all forms here. I was a Democrat and I was discriminated against, So it was the closed-mindedness as a young person that made me leave here. It made me not want to come back to Jacksonville. My mom's got some health problems, which is why I'm back now. I've got a sister and a young niece who live here as well. And if my niece grows up, she's 2.5 now, if she grows up and she's a lesbian, it would break my heart to think that she would be discriminated against in Jacksonville, where she was born, her hometown. And I'm not the only young person who's like this. Thousands of young people are leaving Jacksonville. Jacksonville is having a brain drain. Our best and our brightest don't want to live here because they don't feel comfortable living here. So I urge you to pass 2012-296 because not only do 86% of Jacksonville residents already support this, according to a study done by UNF, 86% already support this, and we're still debating this. We're having a stack of hundreds of people come and talk about this. 86% of Jacksonville supports this. Not only that, but our biggest employers support it with their own policies. Wells Fargo, CSX, Citibank. These are the kind of businesses that we want to bring into Jacksonville. When I moved back, it was tough to get a job here because the economy tanked and we didn't have a lot of good jobs here. So I urge you to pass 2012-296, help bring the jobs we desperately need back to Jacksonville, and show people that we're not the closed-minded city that a lot of the rest of the country thinks we are. Thank you.
I currently serve my country as a member of the Florida Army National Guard. I also work for Wells Fargo and attend FSCJ. Under these organizations, I am protected from discrimination as a result of my sexual orientation. However, our city does not extend the same level of protection in regards to the workforce, housing, and service industry. Ordinance 2012-296 ensures I will receive the same liberties and level of treatment afforded to all other citizens of the city of Jacksonville. The ordinance reads, whereas the city of Jacksonville seeks to build a reputation as a welcoming community for bright and talented members of the workforce, and whereas the city of Jacksonville also seeks to be competitive in attracting new industry to the region. Establishing this vision of a welcoming community requires the support of Bill 2012-296. The city of Jacksonville must initiate the creation of a safer community by ensuring all citizens are protected from prejudice and discrimination under the law. Currently, individuals are at a risk of losing their jobs and housing or being denied services as a result of their sexual orientation. The law promotes equal opportunity for all persons regardless of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, disability, and marital or familial status. The current protections exclude sexual orientation and therefore denying the rights of many of Jacksonville citizens, revoking basic human rights and reducing us to nothing than status of second-class citizens. Offering equal opportunities and rights to all citizens is necessary to affirm our citizens, attract new industry, and ensure the advancement of our city. Support of this bill does not indicate the support of the LGBT community, but rather supports fair treatment and eliminates the fear of reprisal. Most of you here have already been afforded these rights, and I'm here tonight to ask for the same consideration. Please join me in your support of this bill and the betterment of Jacksonville. Thank you.
I moved to Jacksonville in the fall of 2004 after receiving my first bachelor's degree, and I immediately knew that I was no longer in Kansas. I'm from Kansas. I just knew that to be different or to be open-minded, it was something that was frowned upon. So my friends from back home, they don't come to visit me in Jacksonville. They don't bring their tourist dollars to the city. I did not feel safe in the city, and even at the young age of 22, all I could think of was how much I wanted to get out of this city. A place that was not accepting, not open, and at times, even oppressive. Whether it is because I'm Asian, that I'm the first generation to be born and raised here in America, that I was raised Buddhist, or even the fact that I am female. This is gender identity and expression, if you're wondering. I'm the example of it. I didn't always wear my hair short or wear ties, but I have noticed a stark difference to how people treat me, no matter how nice the clothes or the haircut. I like to think that people are all about the bottom line. They will see me as a respectable paying customer, as a good neighbor who bought a nice house in Murray Hill, as someone who works with our future leaders here in the city, and then as an educated person who now has 2 bachelor's degrees and will be completing a master's at the end of this year. I've been working with young teens and college students for years, and the most common thing I hear from them is how much they can't wait to leave Jacksonville, to live and work in a city that is open, accepting, and makes a concerted effort to keep them there. My parents immigrated to the U.S. 3 years after the fall of Saigon. My father was a political prisoner, former paratrooper officer who worked with the U.S. Army, and now one of only 3 children still alive in his family. My mother's oldest of 9 children and was the first to come to the United States. They had a total of $500 to their name. And my father, a newlywed young man, went looking for an apartment in a predominantly Italian-American community in Kansas City. Even with a clearly visible for rent sign displayed out front, landlord after landlord continuously said no to his face. 33 years later, they now realize that times had not changed that much for their only child. They worried, as most parents do, about their only child being treated unfairly, about being discriminated against, or even being picked on. My father always taught me to fight and stick up for myself, so now I am, I am sticking up for myself and for the City Council to pass Bill 296. Thank you.
I'm here tonight to ask you, my City Council members, to do what is right for Jacksonville by supporting Bill 296. I'm a Jacksonville native. I have lived here most of my life. I own a home with my partner, Stephanie, whom I've been with for 11 years in a committed, monogamous relationship. She is a professor at Florida State College. I work at the University of Florida Healthcare at Shands, Jacksonville, as part of the Trauma One team. I fortunately work with colleagues who have been completely respectful of our relationship, and I work for a company that offers support and also provides healthcare benefits to both me and my partner. In these economic times, this is something that is very important, and is one of the reasons I have continued to work there for almost 9 years. But I can assure you that for every person like me who is open, there are many others whom you do not know about, who are not here tonight out of fear for their job, fear for opportunity, fear of the psychological trauma that comes, unfortunately, from the hands of many of our religious communities. The last City Council meeting, I was referred to as, in essence, a good-for-nothing pervert. I'm certain that my patients and the families I have consoled in their time of tragedy did not think I was good for nothing. And I suspect if any of you are ever looking up at me from a hospital bed, you will not be concerned about the person with whom I share my life. Jacksonville is my home, but it has been difficult to live in at times. People around from other parts of the country, they ask, why do you continue to live in such a hostile climate? That's the image they have of Jacksonville. We're now at a point where you, the City Council, are being asked to make a decision. You have the opportunity to redefine our image and to protect a minority group of people in this society. You have an opportunity to send a message of welcome or a message that supports discrimination. Discrimination exists in the city. It is real and it is morally wrong. It is why we have civil rights protections, to protect the fundamental civil rights of minority groups that have been discriminated against. Discrimination didn't occur, we would not need this ordinance. When I go to work, I care for people equally, regardless of anything. As a healthcare provider, it is my oath. As a compassionate human being, it is my character. And I'm asking you, as my City Council, to do your civic duty. Take care of all the citizens of the city. And while laws do not stop a person from discriminating, and while this ordinance does not take away anyone's right to opinion, or to free speech, or to religious interpretation, it does set a tone and it plants a seed that will hopefully inspire all of us to be more loving, more compassionate, and more just. Thank you.
I'm here at the request of the Jacksonville Civil Council, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I am currently the managing partner of the national law firm of Jackson Lewis in its Jacksonville office. So that you know, Jackson Lewis is a firm of 700 attorneys who practice nothing but labor and employment law, and we are dedicated to the representation of management. Since 1986, I have represented and defended businesses in North Florida in claims involving violations of sex discrimination, sexual harassment, brought under state and federal and local law. I'm familiar with the scope of these laws as they are interpreted and how they are enforced. And I regularly appear before the Jacksonville Human Rights Commission, the Florida Commission on Human Relations, and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. I don't know anything about Egyptian law. With this background in mind, though, it is my understanding that certain members of the City Council and public have expressed concern that because the Jacksonville Human Rights Ordinance and other state and federal law currently provide protection against sex discrimination, that the amendment to the Jacksonville Ordinance is unnecessary. As currently interpreted, however, I want to let you know my opinion that federal law does not provide protection for private sector employers on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. And since the Florida Civil Rights Act is interpreted in line with the federal law, there would also be no such protection for these characteristics as proposed under Florida law. and similarly that these protections would not be provided under this current version of the city ordinance. And for that reason, it would be my opinion that if called upon to defend a claim of discrimination brought under the Jacksonville Human Rights Ordinance as it currently stands, alleging discrimination on the basis of an individual's sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression, it would be my position that these characteristics would not be protected under the current ordinance. Simply stated, if such an argument would be made, I would argue, and I believe successfully, that as supported by a great wealth of case law, that the current city ordinance, which provides protection against sex discrimination, does not likewise provide protection against discrimination based on an individual's sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. There are very, very few courts in very limited circumstances which have allowed certain types of sexual stereotyping to be bootstrapped into claims of sex discrimination, but those are very few and far between. And that is why I believe that there are currently 18 city ordinances across the state of Florida which provide specific protection for those that are being considered by the Jacksonville City Council, and likewise 16 states which also specifically include this protection.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Please, your time to expire.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Mrs. Moran. Okay, one moment. Councilwoman has a question.
Mr. President, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your name properly, Mr. Martinez. I just have a question, and I believe that you probably can answer it. So, based on what you were just saying, have you said you have reviewed this bill? Okay, one of the parts of the bill, it says promote mutual understanding and respect. That's one part, and another part of the bill says that expression or behavior of an individual, regardless of an individual's size, sex, and birth. And I guess the two questions I want to ask is, the first thing I asked about the mutual understanding and respect is, does this actually mean that how a person thinks or to controlling a person based on their attitude towards lesbian, gay lifestyles? And the other thing I wanted to ask was, is it legal to say that we'll do this and literally ignore a legal document such as a birth certificate? Those are some questions that no one can ask, and I figured that since you're an attorney and you've studied the area, do you have a little bit of information on that?
I believe the mutual respect phrase is aspiration, that we would all deal with one another in an area of mutual respect as opposed to a violation of the law. However, mutual respect can be exhibited in certain behaviors, such as racial slurs, such as other forms of discriminatory intent which are expressed through behavior. So I don't know if that answers your question. As far as the second portion,
Mr. Margulies, can you speak to the microphone, please?
yes, sir. As far as the second, if you could please repeat that.
Okay. One part of the bill, it talks about behavior of an individual regardless of the individual's assigned sex at birth. And I guess what I'm saying, will that open up other things? Does it need to be language adjusted to that where we can start tampering with birth certificates? And really what I'm looking at and asking about is other doors opening for other things coming up, especially like ignoring a legal document like a birth certificate.
I believe, Ms. Daniels, that would be addressed to the transgender issue. That is, as I understand transgender, and I'm certain there are more persons who are experts in that issue than me, that would be the transgender issue, that you are assigned a particular gender at birth and then you seek to change that at some later point in life.
So when it says gender identity or expression, it just only means gender identity? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Schellenberg is my councilman. I stand in support of the Human Rights Ordinance that is before you this evening for public hearing. This bill is good for Jacksonville. It is good for attracting and retaining a strong business community. It is good for attracting talented individuals in a global marketplace, and it is the right thing to do. This bill, as you can see, has broad community support. Past mayors, past and current city council presidents, past and current chairs of the Jacksonville Regional Chamber of Commerce, the nonprofit community, the faith community, people from all across our city are urging you to bring our city in line with other major metropolitan areas across our state and across our country and ban discrimination of any kind. Your own Human Rights Commission passed a resolution last fall urging you to take this action. And you've heard about the research and the work that they did looking at laws all across our state and across our country and the negative effects of discrimination in a community. The city ordinance code requires that commission, it requires your Human Rights Commission to continually look for ways to outlaw discrimination and bring this community together. And that's what they did when they passed a resolution last fall. And so many other citizens across our community stand with them tonight, and we urge you to vote yes. The Jacksonville Regional Chamber of Commerce, one of the largest chambers of commerce in the United States, voted last Friday to support this bill. One Jax passed a resolution in support of this bill. You know, I know many of you, and I have great admiration for people who run for public office. Campaigning is really hard, and governing can sometimes be even harder. But when you took the oath of office, you promised to protect all the citizens of this community, not just some of them. I urge your support for this bill. We need to do what's right because the world is watching. Thank you.
I grew up in Jacksonville, and I also work in Jacksonville, and I'm a property owner in Jacksonville. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you in support of the community's gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender residents. In 2007, Jacksonville Community Council's Young Professionals, JCCI Forward, endeavored to discover the status and impact of our LGBT community. I am proud to say that I chaired this effort. Over 50 folks in our community, straight and gay, from all walks of life, worked together in this process. Please note that this inquiry process was carried out by Jacksonville's up-and-coming leaders. These community stewards reached consensus that the LGBT residents in our community pay an awfully steep price for simply being who they are. The cost of intolerance adversely affects individuals and the whole community. Without equal protection under the law, we, us, you, promote the harassment and hopelessness of too many young people, support the inability of same-gender parents to protect their children, and limit the opportunities for productive citizens to contribute their talents to this community. Do you think it equitable that LGBT citizens who want to protect their families' wealth and property face costs, financial costs, in order to enjoy the same protections that heterosexuals enjoy for free? What you need to know is this. Up to 10% of the people in our community can identify as LGBT. These citizens are friends, co-workers, neighbors, and family members. And they live in every neighborhood, worship in churches, temples, and synagogues across Jacksonville, attend local schools and colleges, and work in every business sector. When it becomes known that they love someone of the opposite or of the same gender, or they identify as their opposite gender, they may be risking their livelihoods, where they live, and perhaps their very lives. Love, preference, and gender identity have no bearing on being a good tenant, a great student, or a productive worker, and yet discrimination exists. Ask yourselves why LGBT citizens should be denied the right to contribute to society. The stress of living your personal truth in private while presenting a so-called acceptable public face, coupled with the consequences of discrimination and the threat of being outed in the wrong place, destroys the human spirit. Let me close with this quote from the JCCI Forward report. When one group of people is oppressed, the entire community loses the gifts that these residents would have brought to family life, worship, school, and work. In essence, the Jacksonville community is malnourished when one group starves. Thank you.
I have been a minister in this community for 23 years,
and I have witnessed and felt the heartbreak and the growing frustration of lesbian and gay members of Riverside Baptist Church as they have struggled with the fear of discrimination in the workplace and in the housing arena. It is my firm conviction that none of us have equal human rights unless those rights are applied and defended for all of us. I believe that 2012-296 is what is right and good and fair and just for this city. I know a lot has been said about religion, so let me put my 2 cents worth in. I'm also a Baptist minister in this community. And as a Baptist, I am a strong supporter of freedom of religion, which means I will defend to the hilt the right of anyone to express and practice their religion, even if it is diametrically opposed to my own. But the counterpart of freedom of religion is freedom from religion. And this Baptist minister stands squarely against any religious expression, any faith and practice, even if it's Baptist, from determining and claiming what constitutes equal human rights for all of us in this city. I urge your support in your passage of 2012-296. Thank you.